I prepared this gate, a lovely garden gate, made again from wrought iron in the traditional method. And I've prepared some of the areas here to show you some of the finishes. As you can see, the gate has been painted, I think, several times. And that paint is now lifting off the surface. So in a case like that where you're painting over a gate that's already painted, there are certain things you've got to do. First of all, you've got to take off, we'll do this one here, any of that loose paint has to come off. If the loose stuff remains, you're not going to have a bond with the metal itself, and that's what you're trying to do. And again, to some degree, those paint layers are part of the history. I mentioned my mother. That is part of the history, part of the memory, and it's going to be layered down in here, whatever. And I like that idea, you know that. So I like to use a variety of different tools and find out which one works best for you. Now you might think I'm a bit mad putting this amount of effort into it, but these are the areas in which this gate is going to break down if they're not treated properly. So it's well worth giving them that attention. And really our job here is primarily to protect. Again, I'm using this, or I can use this. Time spent in this part of the process is really time well spent. It's essential. And again, just think of the gate as you're conserving it. Let's just say this gate hung properly, out of the wet, and no vegetation on it. It already has lived maybe 100 years, and it'll outlive all of us here. And the next thing is, again, to clean it down. And to clean it down, again, we're going to use a white spirit, and we're kind of washing it. That's the right one, isn't it? This one here. That was a lovely red. Yeah, like a mailbox red. And now that little memory for me is coming through of my mother painting that mailbox red. And you get some idea of how brilliant it was in its day. The whole trick about painting these is thin layers. The rule of thumb is thin layers of paint, well applied, and as many of them as you like, really. Where you've have large areas of paint still remaining, right? It's really good, and what I have done there now with the wire brush, and you can use sandpaper as well, is to take the gloss off and etch the surface with the sandpaper to form a bond or a keying in for your layer of paint. Preparation is everything. The next key stage is applying the paint and applying it properly. To apply the paint properly, mix the paint properly, but also put it on in thin layers and let it dry. The paint has to cure, and particularly with oil-based paints, you're going to look at 36 to 48 hours between oil-based layers. Yesterday, I decided to clean and prepare so that we can do some finishes today. What I've done is what we've done here, scraped all of that down, cleaned it down, and I put on the base coat. And I'm going to talk about the traditional way of painting a gate to conserve it. Clean down the surface thoroughly, put 2 coats of a zinc primer. So you buy the zinc primer, you coat it once, and again it's a thin layer, and that's what's gone on here. And then 1 coat of an iron oxide. And then the finishing coat used to be and is 2 coats of gloss paint. So you put on one, you leave it for 48 hours, and then you put on the next layer. So this section here, if you get a chance today, I'm going to paint with a gloss paint just to show you what it is. I want to offer a third option, paint or not to paint. So we looked at the not painting option. We looked at the traditional painting option. But with red lead, this red lead oxide paint, 2 coats of the zinc and 2 coats, or 1 coat even will do, suffice, of that red lead. And that can be your finish. You can leave all of your gates with that finish colour. So that can be a finish as well. You don't have to go to the next stage, which is applying the gloss paint. Now all of this is on the premise that this surface has been cleaned thoroughly. And wash down. 2 coats of the zinc oxide, then 1 coat or 2 if you wish of the iron oxide. And that gate is very snug and it'll wrap up well for winter and water will not get in. So the traditional finish again is clean thoroughly, wipe it down, 2 coats of zinc primer and that red oxide for a base, and traditionally it would be painted in a gloss colour. So I've chosen Sheffield green here, and let's just see how it goes. Oh my God, look at that. Isn't it just beautiful? Now I am really careful to make sure I get into all of these joints here. So here in this piece we see all the various levels. That would have been the traditional way of preserving and conserving the wrought iron gate.